have a mechanism for getting the stops for a particular address or postcode, or even a latitude and longitude for any location. And we've also got a method that if we type in a nonsense postcode or something that's not recognised, we get some messages back. What we'd like to do now for each of those stops, let's take a look at this. For each of those stops, let's say this one, 1600 GL F576, for that stop, what I would like to know is what buses are timetable to arrive there, and there could be many buses which stop at that place. They may go on to different locations, and really that's what we're trying to do, is find out the route of any particular bus from a bus stop. The first thing that we really need to do is, from that location, from that ATCO code, is find out what the timetabled buses are. And there is an API, as you might guess, which handles that. And we have it here. So this API is called getBusTimetable, or just timetable. And what it requires is an ATCO code, which, as you can see, we've picked up ATCO codes now, so we've got something that we can put into this, and it requires a date and time. And the parameters for the URL, these are the parameters, and before any of the query parameters, that we're looking now at the parameters in the URL itself, okay, before the question mark, which would come after the JSON. For those parameters, they're described here. So, for example, the ATCO code is a valid ATCO code. Well, we're picking it up from our stops. And then we've got a date and a time. Now, the date and time, we can specify them. So you can put in your own date and your own time, or you can leave the field completely blank, in which case it will manage without your input. And it's going to call the timetable.json API. The query parameters that we need are, again, the API ID and the key. That's going to be in all of our calls. And we're also going to be looking at these two, group and limit. Now, they're not really required. We don't need to put them in there. In fact, group has only got two. We can either choose a route or no route, and limit has a value. I've put 4 in there at the moment, but it can be any sort of value. It's the number of departures to return for each group. So we're going to use them in our call, but we're not going to pick them up from anywhere. We're not going to do anything with them. We're just going to use them for completion's sake. And this is the actual call. What I want you to notice is that we've got the header here, the first part, the domain, and this does not include a date and time. I didn't put a date and time in the parameters for the URI, and what it's done is it's actually just put 2 forward slashes where date and time would be. And then we've got, after the question mark, we've got the query parameters. Now, this call is the same as any other call that we've made so far, so it's not going to be too difficult. We're going to use copy and paste to actually do this. And what I'm expecting to get back is this information here. So this is the schema on the left hand side, and this is actual return for the information that I put in. And what I want you to notice is that for the stop, for the ATCO code, we get various pieces of information, but importantly we get bus numbers. So that is bus number 23, this is bus number 31, and so on. And that is what I really want to pull out from this. I want to find out which buses stop at a particular stop, and when I know the bus number, then I can use another of the API calls. So for example, the route one, can't see that there, I need to pull it down a bit. The route call, this one, which requires an operator, a line, a direction, and then what we've used previously, the ATCO code, the date and the time. So we've got a different call, and I've got to pick up this information: operator, line and direction. So let's take a look again at this data that we've got coming back. So here's my bus number, number 23. That is actually known as the line. We can see it in here. Line is 23 and a line name 23. So that is just the bus number and what you see on the front of the bus. Now direction, which we mentioned, is here. And this one says the bus station set down in Gloucester. And actually that's not the direction that we require. If we look at the parameters for direction in the query, oh, we need to look at the other one. What it's actually asking for is this direction here, DIR. We need to know whether it's inbound or outbound. So I need to pick up that piece of information. And the last thing I need to pick up as well is the operator who's running the bus company. I mean, at the moment this one is Stagecoach West, but the value that I require is the operator. I need to say a little bit more about that because sometimes we don't get an operator and we don't know who the operator is, and that actually doesn't provide us with a route. But all we need to do is pick up this information from this API call: the line number, the operator and the direction. So let's get on to the coding and see if we can do this quickly. Don't want the video to become too long. As I said before, it's just an API call, and we've done several API calls already. We've done this one, bus bounds. Essentially I could just copy and paste pretty much all that I want. I'm going to call this one bus timetable because that's what we're calling the bus timetable. So if I make a function define a bus timetable, so I can get the bus number and details from the timetable, and I'm going to need, as you saw before, the API keys and the API ID. So I'm just going to copy these directly from the previous one and paste it into my new timetable. I just need a bit of space there. It's looking a bit scrunched up, so let's give myself some space to work with. What I'm going to end up doing is returning a result back to the call-in program, which is going to be the JSON dictionary of the parameters, the information that's contained in here. So return the result. Now I have to, a little bit different, because I have to now create the URL. If you can see that the URL contained more than just the bus stop, it contained further parameters in the URL. I'm going to have to build those in as well as encode and place my query parameters. So let's manage the query parameters first, because we've done that up here. So when we did that, we used values equal something. We're going to do exactly the same thing here. I'm going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting in this one. So the values, what did I need to put in for the query parameters? I needed to have the app ID, app key, group and limit. Well, I've got app ID, app key, so I need here group, and that one we decided was going to be route, and limit, and we decided that that was going to be 4. And when I say we, I mean I decided it was going to be 4. So there we go. We've got our query parameters. So let's save that and build the query parameters exactly the same way. We're just going to be copying and pasting just about all of this, really. There's nothing new in this call. apart from building that URI. So let's copy that and paste that in. So we've got the parameters now. It's encoded the values here. Now I've got to deal with the API, the URL that I'm actually building. And this time it's not stops. If we take a look back here, it's the UK bus stop, singular, and we had that down here. Stop is the domain with bus and stop. So I'm going to start off with that. So that's going to be stop, so that was easy, just take the S out of that. Now I've got to try and build this string. So what I needed, if I just pull this down a little bit, maybe we can see the thing. We're going to need the @co code next. So I need stop plus @co code. And sorry about the pause, but I was just looking. I haven't passed anything into here. Remember what we need are three things. We need the @co code, which we found from here, but we also need to supply a date and time. So I'm going to pass those into my function. So there's my @co code and my date and my time, and I can now use those in my URL. So there's my @co code, and I need to separate them with forward slashes, otherwise this just won't work. So there's my forward slash after the @co code. So there's my @co code. I'm up to here, forward slash. Now I need to put the date and time in. So I need to add the date and separate that from the time with a forward slash, and add in the time to my URL plus a forward slash. Well, actually I'm not going to put the forward slash in there. I'm going to actually put it as part of this. And instead of calling bbox, what we're actually going to be calling this time is timetable JSON. So if I take out bbox and just use timetable, that's pretty much, we'll test it out in a minute. That's my URI built, and after the question mark I've got my query parameters. Then I'm going to call them and get back the web page as a string, and then I'm going to turn that string information into a dictionary. Then I'm going to return it to the calling program. What I'd like to do now is just do a quick test to see if this works. So I'm going to save it. Let's come back down to my main program. Here we are. Instead of get local stops, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to call the bus timetable. So let's Control C that. Control V, and instead of having these fixed, I'm going to have an @co code. Let's just cheat a little bit. Let's take that one. I'm going to copy that @co code and paste that in there between two quote marks, and we're going to have no date and no time. And really what it does, if you don't supply date and time, is it produces now. So there's my call to my function. Hopefully it will work, and the result should print out to the screen. So let me save that and run the program and see where we get. And there we go. That's really, really nice. We've got data coming back. I'm happy about the fact that we've got data coming back. And we should have the data that was mentioned here. So we should be able to find, let's take a look at it. We should be able to find the line number. So there's a line number there. We've got the operator somewhere in here. There's operator name, operator, there we go, with GB, and also I wanted the direction, the DIR, which was sort of inbound. I'm sure that will be in there somewhere. You can probably see it long before I can see it, but it's in there. As you can see, it's not in the same order. This is quite unordered. It's quite difficult to see. But there we go, there's a version of it, dir inbound. Okay, so we've got really what we need. We're okay, we can pull out that information and then send it onto our next API and get some further information from that.